Good afternoon and welcome to the City of Rapid City Legal and Finance Committee meeting for Wednesday, April 27th of 2016. I'd like to start the meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum, please, Maggie. Thank you. Now's the time to adopt the agenda. Unless there's any items that a seated committee member would like to add or modify or remove, I'll entertain a motion to adopt today's agenda.
Move to adopt.
Got a motion by Nordstrom to adopt today's agenda, second by Laurenti. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda has been adopted. Now's the time for general public comment. This is a time for any audience member to address the committee members present today on any item that is currently not on today's agenda. I currently have no speaker request forms for general public comment. Am I missing anyone? Seeing none, general public comment is now closed. We're moving on to public comment for consent items. Consent items today are 1 through 10. I currently have no speaker request forms for any of the consent items 1 through 10 on today's agenda. Am I missing anyone? Seeing none, public comment for consent items are now closed. Now's the time to consider consent items 1 through 10. Are there any items that a seated committee member would like to have removed for separate consideration? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent items 1 through 10.
So moved.
I've got a motion by Laurenti to approve consent items 1 through 10, second by Drew. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent items have been approved. We're now on to public comment for non-consent items. Non-consent items today are items 11 and 12. I currently have no speaker request forms for either of the non-consent items. Am I missing anyone? Seeing no one, public comment is now closed. We are on to item number 11. Item number 11 is Lee and May Osborne. Sorry about that. If you two would please approach the podium. There are speakers provided. Since you are bringing this item, if you could go ahead and tell us a little bit about the item and what you are asking of the committee members today, and the committee members will be all ears.
Well, this January, the city encountered a water main break up on Haynes Boulevard, which, according to the newspaper, drained a whole reservoir of 2 million gallons of water. It backed up through the sewer main and into my wife's salon. The salon had barely been open 13 months. All the equipment was brand new. So we were down for a week. The landlord did take care of the emergency services and the cleanup of it, but we did lose some equipment due to damage. We lost a week's worth of income off the salon, and we will have to replace the floor. So there's a cost of $20,000 that for all the items listed.
Are there any other comments you'd like to offer at this time?
No, I mean, the one thing is all permitting had been done through the city. Everything on our end had been inspected prior to closing of the, and taking occupation of the building. So everything had been done according on our end. There was really nothing out in our control to keep this flood from happening. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. The committee members will now be addressing this issue. If you could stand by, there may be additional comments or questions from the committee members. The chair would like to recognize Alderwoman Drew.
Yes, I do have a question for the Osborne. On your equipment, did you have business insurance or any kind of insurance to cover?
We had the liability insurance, required by, but our business insurance didn't cover it because of the flood was not caused by. They told us our insurance didn't cover it because the flood was not caused by any of the water that was actually from our. Wasn't like we had a water line break in our salon, on our premises that caused this. It was a city water main break that caused this.
So there was no break on the property that you rented?
No, it backed up through the sewer, the city sewer. It overran the city sewer is what happened. It created too much water volume, and it backed up my wife has a industrial sink in there, you know, like a lot of the salons do, and it backed up through the whole drain system, or the sewer backed up into the property.
If I could, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to send this through to council without recommendation.
I've got a motion by Drew to send to council without recommendation, second by Lewis. Alderwoman Drew, you still have the floor.
I yield.
There are currently no other speaker lights, so if the committee wouldn't mind, I'd like to ask Mr. Barbier a question based on the city's claim. There were some attachments on this, and it looks like that the claim for water damage was processed through the city's insurance company. And it appears, Mr. Barbier, if I read this correctly, that the city's insurance company denied this claim because the city had no...
That's correct. In these situations, generally these claims are denied because the city wouldn't have had any way to know. We didn't do anything wrong. We weren't negligent. There's no way we would have known that that water main was going to break in that particular place. If you need more details, Risk Manager Trevor Schmelz is here, but that's basically how the insurance company decided this.
Thank you. And Trevor, Mr. Schmelz, if you could approach the podium.
Yes, go ahead.
So I understand that you're probably the one that processed this claim and worked with the insurance company as far as getting them the information or any of the questions that they had?
Yes, they had submitted the claim for damage in the amount of $20,000, submitted it to insurance. Their findings yielded in no direct action or activity by the city that caused the water main break, and so therefore it was accidental and sudden.
And Mr. Schmelz, I do know that there was a lot of discussion concerning, as Mr., let's see if I can get the name correctly, Osborne, had indicated that this came up through an existing, sewer backup. But we've had residences during heavy rains that have encountered the same thing, and the city doesn't normally pay those off, do they?
No, underneath the resolution, we help with professional cleanup costs. We do not cover any personal or real property.
All right, thank you. The chair would like to recognize Alderwoman Drew.
So could I ask you a question? So in other, excuse me.
Mr. Schmelz?
Mr. Schmelz, yes. So if it's an accident, it's still not our problem? I mean, I don't really get that. I mean, it must have had something to do with some kind of, I don't know, something that wasn't quite right in that water main that would cause a break. I don't know of accidental water breaks. I don't understand that.
Well, underneath our insurance, I mean, we have to actually have some negligence or liability that would aid in the causing of the water main to break. For example, if we were doing work in that area, within a certain period of time, and that would have been the contributing factor for the water main to break, then at that point in time we could say we had some negligence in this, but unfortunately it was just a water main break that ruptured.
So just a water main break is not our responsibility as a city?
I work for a contractor locally that puts in water mains. They're inspected by either the city inspectors or...
Come please to the mic.
I work for a local contractor that puts in water mains, and they're either inspected and tested by a city inspector or a engineering firm that is hired by the city. And so the city has signed off on this water main that they have basically purchased it once it's put underground and passed inspection and passed testing. I believe it's the city owns this. I mean, isn't this what our taxes are paying for, is road improvements and water mains and everything else? That's my big, that's where I'm concerned, I mean, it wasn't, I realize the city's not taking any fault or blame in this, and I'm not saying it is, but it's definitely not Miley Threading and Beauty Salon's fault for the sewage backing up into our shop.
Do you think you bear some liability because you didn't have insurance on your equipment? And just liability?
Our insurance will not cover it.
So it's not our fault.
Because it wasn't, they said if it would have been a water break, or if would have left a sink running or something like that and caused this, then our insurance would have covered it. But it wasn't anything that was on our side. Our insurance doesn't want to pay for it either, because they're saying it's not our problem. So we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard spot here.
I understand, and I guess we have some more information from people that know a little bit more about this than I do, but I'm really kind of torn on this one because we should have reliable systems in place.
The chair would like to recognize Alderman Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. This is for Public Works. This comes from the Water Department. This is not a tax-funded issue, correct?
Correct. Our water system is an enterprise fund. It's fully funded by the rates collected by the ratepayers for that water system.
Okay, I was just making sure. Just want to clarify that part of it. It's not tax dollars that pay for these things. And also, if I get the attorney's take on this, I'd appreciate if I could ask him. Joel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand why it sounds confusing, but when there isn't anything that the city did wrong, there's a question on liability, and that's why we tend to deny these, and the insurer does. So, our insurer is saying, well, it's not our responsibility either. And that's not to say if it were in front of a jury might come to a different conclusion, but at this point, the law, while it may seem strange, does say unless there's some negligence on behalf of the city that we're not responsible. Now, there is a matter of policy. You could decide, well, the city should pay these. However, what you need to understand is because this is an enterprise fund, then we would factor that into our rate structure. Right now, just paying out claims is not factored into our rate structure. So if we just started paying those out, it's going to be a problem. And I would worry about setting a precedent where we start paying for property damage when there's no showing of negligence on the part of the city. And you may be setting a precedent for everyone else then to come in and all the people in the past that because of water main break have had damage to their property. If that is something that you want to be able to pay, then I think the appropriate course of action is to direct the public works staff to look at that, and it's probably going to result in a rate increase because then that's going to be factored in, and there's a philosophical everyone can feel sympathy for these folks because you put yourself in that position, and they're right. They didn't do anything wrong either. So why should I have to bear the responsibility of that solely? Should that be spread among all the ratepayers? And so if you have a break and have damage, the rates that are paid by all the users of the system then fund that. That's a policy question that I guess you need to answer. But right now, that is not the way our rate structure is set up. So,
Alderman Lewis, you still have the floor? Thank you. There's no further lights up here. The motion on the floor is to send to council without recommendation. Since there's no other further lights, Mr. Ledeen, if I can follow up with one more question on that. If the decision by the full city council Monday night is to deny this, as you, and I think you've indicated this, so I'm asking you, the next course of action they would have is to go to filing a civil suit?
Yes, if they wanted to continue to pursue it, I think they could file a civil suit. At that point, it would probably involve us making claim against their insurer too, and the insurance companies, at some point, if there is a judgment in their favor, the insurance companies can find out who is ultimately responsible for paying that. We have insurance, they have insurance, so.
Right. Thank you, sir. Seeing no further lights, as I said, the motion on the floor is to send to council Monday night without a recommendation. No further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
The issue will go before City Council Monday night. This is just a recommending body, so the decision tonight, is to send to the council so that you can have the ear of the full council. So if you can attend Monday night, and at least go, we'll talk about it again.
I appreciate everybody's help. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 12 is the second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6103 to amend certain provisions concerning digital signs, sign credits, and spacing of off-premise signs by amending section 17.50.080 and 17.50.090 of the Rapid City Municipal Code.
Move to approve.
Got a motion by Nordstrom to approve, second by Lewis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
I've got a motion by Laurenti to adjourn, second by Nordstrom. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.